So people ask me, how much does it cost to get a divorce? Well, that's a very difficult question to answer because there are a lot of factors that play into that equation. In other words, first factor is how much does your spouse want to fight? How difficult are they to deal with? Do they just want to fight and make things unpleasant and cost you and increase your cost? You have to look at the level of contentiousness or level of contention with your spouse. This fighting is very expensive. Another factor that can play into the cost of your divorce is the attorney that your spouse hires. Now, there's always the 80-20 rule, and there are these attorneys who are very difficult to deal with, who want to just churn the litigation process and maximize the amount they can bill out of each case. That can be problematic. And if you hire an attorney like that, you will pay the freight. In other words, if you hire an attorney like that, you will pay the cost, and it will be expensive for everybody. And if you hire one of these high conflict attorneys, you may end up paying some of the other side's legal costs in terms of sanctions for delaying the case. So it's much better to get an attorney who you know will fight for you, but you know will also be reasonable. You want an attorney who will pick the battles that need to be fought, but settle where the case can be settled. And that's another reason. If you want to lower the cost of your case, think about having a private neutral assigned to the case early on that can give your case the attention it needs. In the public system, you could go months and months and months before a judge really looks at your case. You don't want to go all the way to trial a year and a half later before you get an objective analysis and review of your case by a third-party judge. You want to have your case evaluated as soon as possible. One thing that we do early on, we recommend what we call an accelerated discovery process, where we don't get exact amounts, but we get an idea what is there and what are the issues in the case. What is going to be the issue with the children? How do we deal with that? We get to the point of looking at what the assets are and the liabilities. And one thing that's really good is to early on go to a mediator or go to a private neutral, go to a private judge and get your case evaluated. Try and mediate the case, try and enter this mediation process. I will tell you right now, my experience, I've rarely seen people do better taking a year and a half or 2 years to do their case than the result a mediator will most often arrive at early on in the case. So get your case evaluated early, listen to your attorney, try and do this early settlement process where you get a real idea of can the case be settled and is it worth really fighting to the end? We have a saying in family law that is the juice really worth the squeeze? You have to really think about that early on. The basic cost for filing a case between a $400 plus filing fee and a service fee is going to be about $550 to file your case in California. And that's going to be added on to your retainer. That's a fee that's going to be paid to the county and to a process server just to begin your case by filing your papers and serving it on the other side. So do you mediate or do you litigate? I suggest that you may do both, but first try and mediate. And by the way, when I say mediate, I mean go to a private neutral who you pay for their time, go with the other side, and the most important rule is always take your attorney. Of course, have your trusted legal advisor with you. I have seen people who tried to mediate their case without their own legal advisor. And the first thing that can be problematic is if you show up at your mediation without an attorney and the other side has an attorney, that's going to be a waste of time because the mediator, it's awkward. The mediator doesn't really know how to handle that. The mediator cannot advise you. You need your own trusted legal advisor in any mediation or any proceeding with a private neutral, especially if the other side has theirs. Another thing that happens in mediations is that one party or both parties will show up, and unbeknownst to one party, the other party's got their attorney on speed dial. So they're stepping out and they're asking their attorney questions, and the other party doesn't have legal advice. They're not getting, they don't have an attorney who they can reach out to. And so invariably, mediation is going to be a bad experience if you do not have a legal advisor with you in that process. With regard to mediation, super important. Go early, take a legal advisor. In my experience, if you will do that, 80 to 90% of the time, your case will settle early on. And you're going to leave with your dignity intact. You're going to leave with a better relationship with your soon-to-be ex-spouse than if you would have stayed and litigated the case for another year and a half. If mediation does not work, if you find that you have a high conflict spouse, maybe your spouse is borderline personality. Now, a spouse with borderline personality, in my experience, they are not going to settle. These are people who love the thrill of the fight. They love the being in the witness stand and telling the judge their side of the story. They love thinking that they can sway the judge over to their side. If you are married to a person like that, you need an attorney who knows how to handle that. And there are certain ways to deal with a spouse who is high conflict, whether that be borderline personality, narcissistic personality, histrionic personality. You've got to deal with people like that, or people who are bipolar. And sometimes you need to fight, and you need to be ready to fight. You need to know there's going to be a fight. And if it's going to be a fight, you want to fight as hard as you can, be a super aggressive. Speed is the key. You need to get through the process, do what you need to do, and get to trial as soon as possible. Speed is the key in fighting a high conflict spouse. You've got to get to the end, get to the finish line as quick as you can, because these people can drag your case out for years.